Housing Alert and SAPRI have conducted last year in partnership with the Young Political Leaders Forum, Waipila, of which Mr. Unes Farooq is Senanayake Kumartunga, Chairman of the South Asia Policy Research Institute. That they are confined to a certain role that does not include exercising.
Day for us women, because the then opposition leader, the now Prime Minister, when he was in the opposition, he appointed a commission to look into the violence against women and the girl child. And this report was presented to the then opposition leader, now Prime Minister, in December. And this report was presented to Parliament by the Women's Minister. And I had to be there to support the report in order to make sure that we would be on a better platform to eradicate violence against women. Sadly, we all know that violence against women have rapidly increased in the last 2 years. It is being said and it is being proven by some of the statistics and work that has been done by non-governmental organizations, that from the year 2012 to 2014, violence against women and children had increased by 20%. And the reason being that the state has failed to criminalize the criminals. Now this is a very sad state of affairs. We all know, I think many of us are aware because we all work with regards to empowering women and women's issues, and we work towards for the betterment of women and children. That the reports show from 2009, these reports done by the Census Department, or rather the reports that are reported, rather the cases that are reported with regards to violence against women and children. If you take the reported cases among the cases reported against women, for 39,604 within a very short span of 4 years, 2009 to 2014, the beginning of 2014. Cases reported against children were 32,259. And everybody is aware that out of all the cases that are in the courts, 1/3 of these cases are cases with regards to children. Now, when I questioned the Minister of Justice in Parliament many a times on these cases and what kind of methods or what have the Justice Ministry done in order to make sure that the perpetrators have been taken to task, it was sad to know that even though the reported cases are almost 75,000 women and children, the number of perpetrators who are at this point of time serving a sentence is only 713. So this is the reason to why, perhaps when they did this study on the 2012 to 2014, the increase of 20% being, one of the reasons being that the state has failed to criminalize the criminals, I could quite believe that. It is time for us to take severe action with regards to criminalizing these criminals and not letting them get off the hook. We have heard and we have seen, and these cases have been reported also, where some people who are being rather not convicted, but they have been some of the people who are mainly politicians who have bragged about, sleeping with women or raping women, and they have also bragged about the number of women that they have, put into trouble, and they also have had celebrations. And these are some of the things that have been reported in the local media. These are not stories that I'm making up. So the fact that people on the ground, either they're politicians' stooges or they themselves actively involved in local politics, if you take the Kahawat story, if you take the Akurasa, Tangala story, these stories are appalling. And what has the state done in order to take these people to task and actually criminalize these criminals? So for this reason, I felt that it was important when the Women's Minister was basically presenting this report to Parliament that we should stay there and support it. Also, the former President, Chandrika Bandanaka Kumaratunga, Madam, you quite rightly stated about women in politics, and that is obviously the theme of today. I must say, first of all, I have to congratulate Madam Chandrika Bandanaka Kumaratunga, and I'd like to commend her for being such a strong personality where we women can look up to, even after 10 years of being silent, that she was able to change the political culture and the political course of this country at this point of time. Thank you, Madam, for taking the initiative quite silently and bringing the relevant parties together and making this move. And it was very timely, and I think we all need to give you all the credit for the new political culture. In this new political culture, we all know there is this 100-day program, and that was the pledge that the Honorable President, His Excellency Maithripala Sirisena, in his election manifesto, he spoke about 100 days. He promised to implement certain constitutional changes, amendments to the Constitution, plus bringing new laws with regards to what is absolutely necessary, especially about women and children as well. And also he looked at some of the very important dying issues with regard to the public, the general public, things like bringing the cost of living down, making some certain amendments, looking at malnutrition among children, malnutrition among pregnant mothers, and these are being implemented right now. Some of it has been already done, some are in the process, some we're getting ready for each ministry and each ministry's subject. I think we are all working tirelessly to fulfill the 100-day program. Now, in this 100-day program, it was said that the local government institutions and the provincial councils will have a 25% women, and we would work towards making sure that the local councils and the provincial councils would have 25% of women. And I must thank the Prime Minister, the Honourable Ranil Wickremesinghe, of course. He categorically kept saying that he has no peace at home, so he has to make sure that this is being done. And I'm very glad that we have very powerful women, and the women's movement has been very strong in advocating for women in the forefront, especially in the National Assembly, provincial and the local government. But in the pledge, in the 100-day program, it is only talking about 25% in the local councils and the provincial councils. The Prime Minister had many rounds of talks with the women's groups and women's activists who have been working tirelessly for years over this issue. And the Election Commissioner, together with the Women's Ministry, and I myself, was invited to be at these talks. And we've had many rounds of talks. And finally, the Prime Minister directed the Election Commissioner to look into ways and means in how we could increase or bring 25% of women. So we were very adamant to say no quotas, but reservation of seats. And so he said, because he knew that this debate was going on, so he said, okay, I would urge and ask the Commissioner to sit with the ladies. And we sat with the Election Commissioner for almost half a day in the Election Commissioner's Secretariat. And we have already worked out a plan. We brought 3 options. These 3 options will be presented to the Prime Minister on the 10th, when the Women's Caucus will be celebrating its Women's International Day. Sudarshan Fernandopoulos and myself are the organizing committee chairs of the Women's Caucus, and that particular program will be also held at the Bandanayake Memorial Hall. And we are hoping to present 3 options to the Prime Minister, and hoping that simply because the Women's Caucus Women's International Day celebration would be with the presence of all party leaders, the all party leaders will give ear to our plea or our recommendations. The Election Commissioner will be there, so I'm hoping that we could move forward. And as we had promised in the 100-day program to make sure that we have 25% of women in the local councils and the provincial councils, we would see a better tomorrow. And we're not going to stop there. We're going to make sure that we have 30% or perhaps 50% in the National Assembly as well. And Madam Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, we urge you to support us. I know many times you have mentioned this to us. I still remember in 2011 when we did this 3 Mela, you gave a speech which I up to date remember, where you said that there are things that you missed out during your tenure as president, and one thing was to empower the women and to make sure that there were more women in the National Assembly. And I'm hoping now that you have got the power base back, that you would speak to the relevant parties and the party heads and make sure that we have at least a minimum of 30% in the National Assembly. Simply because every time we talk about gender issues pertaining to the family, children, sometimes I find that our male counterparts seem to dismiss these issues. They think that these are very light issues. These ministries are very light ministries. When allocating funds, we get very little attention or precedence with regards to these issues. But I'm so glad to see that the present President, His Excellency Maithripala Sirisena, has identified, maybe because he was the Minister of Health and he knew exactly the health factors that are pertaining in this country. Malnutrition among pregnant mothers, especially in the estate sector, is 41.6%. The low birth weight rate has risen from 16.6% to 18%. That means 1 in every 5th newborn baby is born underweight, which has a detrimental effect on the child. Early childhood malnutrition has risen, especially in Kilinochche, according to the state statistics. It's 40.6, but some of the non-governmental organizations, I suppose the studies they have done, they have come up and they've told me that it's more than 55%. So these are very sad statistics. How do we eradicate malnutrition among early childhood, starting with the fetus? So pregnant mothers are very important, and this subject has come under my purview. We are hoping to launch the Pregnant Mothers 20,000 package towards the end of this month. We're waiting for a date from the President. And after the President's launch, Madam Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga would be doing the 2nd round of distribution, and the Prime Minister the 3rd round of distribution. We are hoping that every pregnant mother would get a 2,000 rupee allowance or nutrients worth of 2,000 rupees from the 4th month onwards until delivery and after delivery, so that during breastfeeding time as well, for 10 months at a stretch, 2,000 rupees worth of. We have had many rounds of talks with nutritionists, experts working on the ground. How well should we, there were debates on whether it's cash transfers, cash, credit cards, debit cards, so that they could buy anything that they want from, various outlets. And finally, I think I was very strongly advocating towards giving them the nutrients direct, so that nobody takes the cash and misuse the cash. So we had many rounds of talks with many people, and finally I had the GAs come together, and the GAs suggested that they would call for tenders. And because nutritionists have already given the package that the pregnant mothers need every month, and according to that package, they will call the tenders and they will do the deliveries, because we have 4,000 antenatal clinics in the country. We have 7,000 midwives, and we have a network that comes under my purview with every AGS department, 3 officers. So this network will be working on the ground to make sure that every pregnant mother would have a substantial amount of nutrients, and that we would make sure that she takes the nutrients, because there are ways in how we could do the BMI test and do a follow-up on how well they are doing. So hopefully we will see a better tomorrow for our youth and a better Sri Lanka when we empower the women of this country. Thank you very much.
From 2 previous workshops,